Good morning and welcome back. Myself, Dr. Jibran Ahmad, presents to you Simply Pathology, and today we are back with a very important topic, that is the tumor markers. Now, this is a very interesting topic and it is a very easy topic. Also, it is a very commonly asked question, okay, in the both undergraduate as well as in the postgraduate exam, thus making this topic a very important topic, okay. So without wasting any time, let us begin today with the tumor markers. So what are tumor markers? Okay, remember, all the tumor cells, they are shedding certain substances. Some of them are producing hormones, some of them is shedding some antigens. There are certain lineage specific proteins, certain mucins and certain glycoproteins, and the tumors are also shedding their DNA as well as their RNA. And all of these the tumor markers that I just said, they are present in the blood, stool, urine, sputum, as well as any other body fluid. So tumor markers are nothing but they are footprints of the tumor. Okay, so they are footprints of the tumor. Okay, so there are certain advantages of the tumor markers and there are certain problems which are associated with tumor markers. Okay, suffice is to say that tumor markers, they cannot be used for diagnostic purpose, but they can be contributory towards the diagnosis of a tumor. They can also be used for the screening purpose. So let us start with the problems which are associated with the tumor markers. So they can be elevated in both malignant as well as benign lesions of the same tissue. For example, the prostate specific antigen, which is raised in both prostate cancer as well as in benign prostatic hyperplasia. So this particular marker cannot be used for the diagnosis of prostate cancer because it is raised in both the benign as well as in the malignant counterpart. The second problem is that the tumor markers are having reduced sensitivity as well as specificity. For example, if you see the carcinoembryonic antigen, it is raised in carcinomas of the breast, pancreas, stomach as well as colon. And the alpha fetoprotein is raised in hepatocellular carcinoma, yolk sac tumor and embryonal cell carcinoma. So there is no clear cut pointed towards a single carcinoma. In addition, if you see, both of these are also raised in many non-neoplastic conditions like the previous example. So they cannot be used even as a screening test. Okay, so these are the few problems which are associated with the tumor markers. That is the reason that the tumor markers are not used for confirmation of a diagnosis of a tumor. Rather, they are contributory in the background of clinical information, radiological information. Okay, so along with the other parameters, the tumor markers can contribute or support the diagnosis of a tumor. Okay, let us see what are the uses of tumor marker. First of all, the tumor markers, they can be used for screening of certain tumors. Okay, so they also have an important prognostic value in a diagnosed case of a cancer. Okay, so for example, if there is an already diagnosed case of a cancer and that is showing an increasing levels of a particular tumor marker, it suggests an increased growth of the tumor and it suggests a bad prognosis. Okay, similarly, a decreasing level of a tumor marker, okay, after giving chemotherapy or radiotherapy or after surgical removal of a tumor. Okay, so if the tumor marker levels is reducing, it is suggesting success of a therapy or it is confirming the therapeutic response. Okay, so what is very important is the level of the tumor marker, okay, after a cancer has been diagnosed. Okay, so increasing levels after surgery. So for example, it is also used for follow-up. Okay, so in already treated cases, it is used to follow up the patient to detect any tumor relapse or metastasis. So suppose a patient has already received a treatment, okay, and his tumor marker levels have come down. So now the patient has to be followed up. So in treated cases, the patient are followed up in case the tumor is showing any recurrence, relapse, or there is a tumor metastasis. So in that case, we can detect the tumor early on with the help of these tumor markers. So it is used for follow-up of the tumor. Sometimes the tumor markers are also used for staging of cancer. For example, the serum LDH levels, they are used for staging of testicular carcinomas. Also, we are having certain circulating tumor cell assays like the circulating tumor DNA or circulating tumor RNA assays, and they are helpful in the detection of multiple driver mutations. Okay, so this is helping in the molecular profiling of tumor. So the fifth function that is there is a very recent and is an area of active research, and it is a very upcoming field, okay, in the field of tumor markers. Okay, so let us move ahead into what are the different categories of tumor markers that we are going to read about today. So first is the hormones. Then they can be in the form of oncofetal antigens. Tumor markers can be mucin and other glycoproteins, enzymes, lineage specific markers. Now they can be in the form of immunohistochemical markers, like we are having certain CD markers, and there are others as well, which are the immunohistochemical markers. And also, as I already mentioned, we are having cell-free DNA markers as well in the category of tumor markers. So let us see individual tumor markers. So hormones, the number one hormone is the calcitonin. It is used as a tumor marker of medullary carcinoma of the thyroid. Then we are having the beta HCG, that is the human chorionic gonadotrophin. Now it is raised in trophoblastic tumors, especially the choriocarcinoma. So trophoblastic tumor, there are many. For example, there is a mole, complete mole, partial mole is there, and among them the malignant tumor is a choriocarcinoma, which is very, very important, and beta HCG is used as a marker to follow up or to monitor the choriocarcinoma. Also, beta HCG can be raised in many germ cell tumors. Remember, beta HCG is one hormone which is released by any tumor which is containing the syncytioblast cells. Okay, so any germ cell tumor which is containing this syncytiotrophoblast, okay, it can produce beta HCG. Okay, the third hormone, that is the catecholamines, that is the epinephrine and norepinephrine, as well as the metabolites of the catecholamines like the vinyl mandelic acid, as well as we are having the homovanillic acid, and both of them, they are end stage metabolites of epinephrine and norepinephrine. Classically, they are raised in pheochromocytoma, as well as they are raised in case of neuroblastomas. Okay. Thirdly, we are having the ectopic hormones, okay, and ectopic hormones are released during the paraneoplastic syndrome, the details of which we are going to see in the next lecture, because the topic of the next lecture will be paraneoplastic syndrome. So what are those and what are the different paraneoplastic syndromes will be seen in the next video. And lastly, we are having 5-hydroxyindole acetic acid, okay, which is basically used as a marker for carcinoid tumor, which is an old term for the neuroendocrine tumor. Next group of tumor marker is the oncofetal antigens. Okay, so the oncofetal antigen is composed of two important markers. One is your carcinoembryonic antigen, which is raised in carcinomas of the colon, pancreas, lung, stomach and the heart, and the alpha fetoprotein, which is raised in hepatocellular carcinoma, hepatoblastoma, non-seminomatous germ cell tumor of the testis, most importantly the yolk sac tumor, okay, as well as the embryonal carcinoma, but most important is the yolk sac tumor and the hepatocellular carcinoma. The next group of tumor markers are mucin and other glycoproteins. Okay, so let us see the mucin and the other glycoproteins. Number one, which is very, very commonly known as the CA125, it is a marker of ovarian cancer. CA19.9 is a marker of colon carcinoma as well as pancreatic carcinoma. CA15.3 is a marker of breast carcinoma. Now, two new markers have come into the picture. One is CA72.4 or 72.4. It is raised in colorectal as well as gastric carcinomas, but not in all the cases. Okay, and the sensitivity of this particular marker is around 40% in the colorectal and gastric carcinoma, whereas the sensitivity is in ovarian carcinoma is 50%. So it is raised in colorectal, gastric as well as ovarian carcinoma. As well as the CA2729, it is classically raised in case of breast carcinoma. Excuse me. Now we will look at the other class of tumor marker, that is the enzymes. Okay, so there are many enzymes. Number one, we are having the neuron specific enolase as well as the chromogranin, which is classically raised in the neuroendocrine tumor. So there are many neuroendocrine tumors throughout the body. To name a few, we are having small cell carcinoma of the lung as well as neuroblastoma. prostate acid phosphatase, it is raised in prostate carcinoma. And LDH, that is the lactate dehydrogenase, again an enzyme which is raised in many tumors, but very importantly it is raised in testicular tumors, ovarian tumors, many lymphomas and leukemias, as well as Ewing sarcomas, and there are many other tumors where the LDH will be raised, but the first 5 tumors that I said, they are the most important. Okay, now there are certain lineage specific markers. Okay, for example, we are having immunoglobulins, okay, which actually they are the marker of multiple myeloma. Then for example, we are having the prostate specific antigen and the prostate specific membrane antigen, PSMA. Both of them, they are markers of prostate cancers. Next, we are going to start with the immunohistochemical markers. These are very, very important to a pathologist. Okay, and what is the concept of immunohistochemistry? Let me explain you. Usually this immunohistochemistry, if you see, it is done to detect certain antigens in the cell. This is a cell, these are the nuclear antigen, cytoplasmic antigen or membrane antigen. So antigen can be present at 3 levels: nuclear, cytoplasmic and membrane antigen. So in immunohistochemistry, we are using antibodies to detect the membrane, cytoplasmic or the nuclear antigen. So this is a very, very simplified way in which I am telling you what immunohistochemistry is. So for example, there are certain antibodies that is going to detect the nuclear antigen, and once the nuclear antigen is detected, a certain staining agent is used so that one can understand whether that particular antigen has been detected. So to know that the antibody has bound to particular nuclear antigen, there will be certain staining agent, okay, which is going to give a particular stain. Similarly, there are antibodies to detect the cytoplasmic antigen excuse me, plus there are antibodies to detect the membrane antigen. Okay, let us move ahead. Now we are going to read under the immunohistochemistry. We are having the CD markers. Okay, we are having certain antibodies which are going to recognize the CD antigens, as well as we are having other immunohistochemical markers. So first we are going to start with the CD markers. Excuse me. So before I start with the CD markers, I would like to make one thing very clear. CD markers are classically used in context of lymphoid neoplasm, and that is going to get covered in details when we are going to read about the lymphoid neoplasm or the lymphomas and the different leukemias. Okay, as well as in different kinds of myeloid or in different kinds of blood carcinomas or in the lymphomas or in the body. So in all these, we are going to make use of these CD markers. Okay, now we are just enumerating some of the important CD markers which are used in day-to-day life for the diagnosis of certain important diseases. For example, the CD25. It is also known as interleukin-2 receptor, and classically it is raised in 5 important conditions. One is your hairy cell leukemia. Then we have ATLL, that is the adult T cell leukemia lymphoma. Thirdly, we are having the anaplastic large cell lymphoma, classic Hodgkin's lymphoma, as well as systemic mastocytosis. So out of all of these markers, okay, the most important is the hairy cell leukemia. CD25 is positive in hairy cell leukemia. The second CD marker is CD30. CD30 is positive in 3 important cases, and you have to remember all these 3. One is your classic Hodgkin's lymphoma, anaplastic large cell lymphoma, and then the embryonal carcinoma of the testis. Then we are having the CD99, also called as MYC2. It is most importantly positive in Ewing sarcoma and or the peripheral neuroectodermal tumor. Okay, synovial sarcoma, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and granulosa cell tumor of the ovary. Out of these, the most important is the Ewing sarcoma, synovial sarcoma, and lymphoblastic leukemias. Then we are having CD10. CD10, it is a basic antigen which is detecting the common ALL antigen. It is also called as the common ALL antigen detector. Okay, most importantly, it is positive in lymphoblastic lymphoma. But lymphoblastic lymphoma, which type? Precursor B type. So what is this precursor B type? We will know in details when we read about the lymphoid neoplasm. Just remember at this point of time that the B lymphocytes, they are developing via various stages. So there are many precursor, pre-B cell, pro-B cell stages is there. So here, if the tumor is developing from a certain, the origin of the tumor is from the precursor B cell. So this precursor B cell ALL is called as the lymphoblastic lymphoma, and over there the CD10 is positive. Also remember one thing, that CD10 is also, it is a marker of the follicular center cells. That is, we are having the germinal centers, and the center of the germinal center, the marker of the lymphocytes present in the center of the germinal cells, the germinal follicles actually, it is a CD10. And the tumors which are arising from the follicular center cells, that is the follicular lymphoma, Burkitt's lymphoma, DLBCL. DLBCL stands for diffuse large B cell lymphoma. Okay, so all these three, they will be showing positivity for CD10. And one epithelial tumor which is also showing positivity is the renal cell carcinoma. The clear cell type of RCC is showing this. Okay. Then we are having the CD117, also called as the c-KIT, which is positive. Okay, very importantly, it is positive in the gastrointestinal stromal tumor called as the GIST. Okay, also it is positive in seminoma, which is the germ cell tumor, melanoma, CML, AML, as well as in case of mast cell disease. Now, one very important MCQ that always comes in the exam is the CD31, CD34 and factor number 8, that is the von Willebrand factor. It is classically used in the diagnosis of vascular tumors. So what are the markers of vascular tumors? CD31, CD34, factor number 8, or the von Willebrand factor. Now the CD34, in addition to the vascular tumors, it is also a marker of different other tumors. For example, the gastrointestinal stromal tumors, as we have already read now. Okay, also it is a marker of DFSP, that is dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans. It is a malignant skin tumor, as well as it is positive in solitary fibrous tumor, that is SFT. Okay, so hope you understood this. Now the other tumors which are diagnosed by the immunohistochemistry, now these are just few of the important immunohistochemical markers that we use and which have been asked in the exam. So I have given you an exhaustive an extensive list of the tumors, but out of this I am going to tell you which one is the other most important tumors. So HMB45, classically it is a very important marker to detect malignant melanoma. That should be your first answer, and at least you should remember malignant melanoma and angiomyolipomas, as well as the sugar tumor of the lungs. Okay, these are the PEComas. Okay, so apart from that, if you can remember, then you can remember clear cell sarcoma, Spitz nevus, cellular blue nevus. Okay, so this is very important. The next important IHC marker is S100. Again over here, all these tumors are very important. S100 is positive in malignant melanoma. Again, very important. You have to remember S100 is positive in the peripheral nerve sheath tumors. So the schwannomas, neurofibromas, MPNST, all these three are the peripheral nerve sheath tumor. But the schwannomas and the neurofibromas, they are the benign tumors, and S100 is classically more positive in schwannomas and neurofibromas, whereas in MPNST, which is the malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor, it is weakly positive. Okay, also it is positive in lipogenic and adipocytic tumors like lipoblastoma and pleomorphic liposarcomas. Okay, so again this is very important. So at least you should remember malignant melanoma, okay, schwannomas, neurofibromas and the adipocytic tumors. Other tumors which shows positivity is the glial tumors, okay, the astrocytomas, oligodendrogliomas and the ependymomas. But the most important, you have to remember malignant melanomas, schwannomas, neurofibromas and the adipocytic tumors. Going ahead, another marker is the melan-A or the MART1, which is most importantly, it is positive in melanoma, adrenocortical tumors and angiomyolipoma. But the most important that you have to remember is melanoma. Now the next marker is the gross cystic disease fluid protein called as the GCD-FP15. It is very important, okay, in case of breast carcinoma as well as in case of salivary gland tumors. But to choose one answer, you have to remember the breast carcinoma. Now the next important marker is ALK, anaplastic lymphoma kinase. Okay, it is positive in ALCL, that is anaplastic large cell lymphoma, inflammatory myofibroblastic tumors, MPNST and neuroblastoma. Now the two important answers, okay, if you have to remember for ALK is ALCL, that is anaplastic large cell lymphoma, and inflammatory myofibroblastic tumor. Okay, now TTF1, that is thyroid transcription factor 1. This is positive in two tumors only. Okay, one is the pulmonary carcinoma and another one is the carcinomas of the thyroid. So in which types of pulmonary carcinoma is the TTF1 positive? In adenocarcinomas, bronchoalveolar carcinomas, and small cell carcinomas, which is a neuroendocrine tumor. As well as it is positive in the carcinomas of the thyroid, that is the papillary, follicular, and the medullary variants. Now CDX2, if you see, it is a classical marker of colorectal adenocarcinoma. DOG1 is a marker of GIST, that is the gastrointestinal stromal tumor, and ERPR is an important marker of both breast as well as endometrial carcinoma. PAX8, that is the last important marker. There are many other markers which I am going to enumerate when I am going to tell you about the individual systemic chapters. Okay, but now we are going to go through those important which are asked in the exam. PAX8, if you say, the full form is the paired box gene 8. It is positive in the renal cell carcinoma, the clear cell papillary, chromophobe, and the collecting duct variety, nephroblastoma, thyroid carcinoma, the papillary, follicular, and anaplastic variants, and the ovarian carcinoma, that is the serous, clear cell, and endometrioid variants. Out of these four, three is very important, that is renal cell carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, and ovarian carcinoma. Now we are going to go to tumor specific markers. Already for the vascular tumors, if you see, we have already mentioned about the vascular tumors. The markers for the vascular tumors, if you see over here, is CD31, CD34, and the von Willebrand factor. Okay, now we are going to start with the tumor specific markers. Okay, let us see the tumor specific markers. So over here we are having melanoma, number 1. So which are the markers of melanoma? HMB45, melanase, SOX10, tyrosinase, S100. Okay, the very most important markers over here are HMB45, melanase, and S100. Okay, hepatocellular carcinomas, if you see, there are many markers. Out of them, the most important are arginase 1, which is the best, most sensitive and most specific marker is arginase 1. Then we are having HepAR1, glypican 3, AFP, that is the alpha fetoprotein, HSP, that is heat shock protein 70, and MDR, multi-drug resistant 3. So these are the 6 important markers of hepatocellular carcinoma. Now GFAP is used, that is a glial fibrillary acidic protein, is classically used for diagnosis of the glial tumors. Okay, the CNS tumors in large, they express the GFAP protein. So there are many markers, okay, in the CNS tumors, but the most widely used is the GFAP, that is the glial fibrillary acidic protein. When we are going to read the CNS, we are going to discuss the different markers which is used. Okay, in breast carcinomas, classically we use ERPR HER2/neu, GCD-FP15, and as well as the mammaglobin. In GIST, which is the gastrointestinal stromal tumor, we are using CD117 c-KIT, DOG1, and CD34. For the neuroendocrine tumors anywhere in the body, we are using these 4 markers: synaptophysin, neuron specific enolase, chromogranin, CD56. For thyroid, we are using thyroglobulin and TTF. For lung tumors, it is very imperative that you know this. This is very simplified version I have given you. Please stick to them and read them again so that you by heart them. These are very important potential exam questions as well. For lung adenocarcinomas, the markers which are positive are CK7, TTF1, NAPSIN. For squamous cell carcinoma, you go for CK5, CK6, P63, P40, which is the best marker. So best marker for squamous cell carcinoma is P40. And the neuroendocrine tumors, as I already said before, anywhere in the body, you have to go for these markers like the chromogranin, synaptophysin, neuron specific enolase, and CD56. Next comes for the prostate cancers, we are having PSA, prostate specific antigen, prostate acid phosphatase, and PSMA, that is the prostate specific membrane antigen, PSMA. For colonic adenocarcinoma, CK20, CDX2, and CEA, carcinoembryonic antigen. Remember, all lymphoid neoplasms, whether it be leukemias or lymphomas, they express a marker called as CD45. Excuse me. Okay, so this is the first thing. So the first step towards diagnosing a lymphoid neoplasm is to go for a CD45 staining. Now there is one important MCQ over here. Which are the CD45 negative lymphoid neoplasm? All lymphoid neoplasm, they express CD45 except certain lymphoid neoplasm. Those are classic Hodgkin lymphomas. The RS cells are negative for these CD45 marker. Plasma cell tumors, and even plasma cell as well as plasma blastic tumors, and the precursor B or T cell ALL, okay, which are lymphoblastic in nature, okay. So these are CD45 negative lymphoid neoplasm. In case of ovarian carcinomas, we are having 3 different types. First is the ovarian epithelial tumors, okay, which are further divided into serous, mucinous, endometrial, and there are many others. But the basic ovarian, epithelial tumors, they are positive for CK7, PAX8, EMA, and WT1. Okay. For the germ cell tumors, individually, the dysgerminoma is positive for OCT3, OCT4, NANOG, SOL4, CK, that is CD117, and PLAP. Yolk sac tumors, if you see, they are positive for alpha fetoprotein as well as SOL4. Embryonal carcinomas are classically positive for CD30, OCT4, SOL4, and SOX2. And choriocarcinoma, as was discussed previously, is positive for beta HCG. Now, the sex cord stromal tumor, that is the granulosa cell tumor, Sertoli cell tumor, and the Leydig cell tumor, they are positive for inhibin, FOXL2, and calretinin. Okay. Now, we are going to see an approach towards the diagnosis of adenocarcinoma of unknown primary. So you have seen that there is a particular tumor, you got a slide, and there is an adenocarcinoma where you do not know which is where the tumor is arising, from where the adenocarcinoma is arising. So adenocarcinoma is basically tumors arising from the glands. So from which glands of the body they are arising? So let us understand that. For this, we are using a panel of tumor of IHC marker, that is 2 markers are used, CK7 and CK20. So which are the tumors which are CK7, CK20 positive? So they are urothelial tumors, pancreatic adenocarcinoma, ovarian mucinous adenocarcinoma, and cholangiocarcinoma. The tumors which are CK7 negative as well as CK20 negative, they are hepatocellular carcinoma, renal cell carcinoma, prostatic adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, small cell lung carcinoma, adrenocortical carcinoma. Now, the tumors which are CK7 negative as well as CK20 positive are colorectal carcinoma, Merkel cell carcinoma, and gastric carcinomas. Now we are having certain tumors with a CK7 positive and CK20 negative. So these are lung adenocarcinoma, breast carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma, endometrioid carcinoma, ovarian serous carcinoma, cervical carcinomas, and salivary gland tumors. So this approach that we read, this approach to this adenocarcinoma of unknown primary is not that essential for the undergraduate, but it is very, very important for the postgraduate students. Okay. Moving ahead, we come to the last leg of today's lecture, that is the cell-free DNA marker, which is the last type of tumor marker. So we have to understand that it is a highly specific and sensitive test that identifies specific driver mutations in a DNA isolated from urine, blood, or stool. So basically, we are over here, we are trying to isolate the RNA and the DNA, and we are trying to find the driver mutation. If you remember, driver mutations are those mutations which are important to attain the hallmarks of cancer. Okay, that is why to identify the driver mutation is very, very important. Okay, so many cancer related markers are measured simultaneously instead of a single tumor marker. Okay, so this is called as a liquid biopsy. So over here, circulating tumor DNA as well as the circulating tumor RNA, they are subjected to molecular profiling of the tumor. Okay, so what are some of the examples of the cell-free DNA markers that are being used today? Is the EGFR mutants in the serum is used for detection of lung cancer. TP53 APC RAS mutants in stool and serum used for detection of colon cancer. TP53 RAS mutants in the stool and serum for pancreatic carcinoma. TP53 RAS mutants in sputum and the serum for lung carcinoma. TP53 mutants in urine used for detection of bladder cancer. So for all of you, today's lecture ends over here, and just to give you a brief insight about our pathology batch, it has already started, and yet the admission process is going on for the pathology batch for MBBS, MD, as well as for IU students, and I attend and provide private tuitions for both national as well as the international students. So those who are interested can contact me in my WhatsApp 90731200651 and into my email ahmadgibran90@gmail.com. Thank you everyone once again for the love and support you have provided towards this channel, and thank you very much everyone for sharing this channel with your friends, and you can contribute via the PayPal links given in the description box to support this particular channel, www.paypal.me/simplypathology.com. Thank you very much guys. Please do share the videos with your friends, with your colleagues, if you think that it has helped you in any way, and if you have any doubts, please do comment in the comment section. Thank you very much. I will be back soon with another video.